We are on the home straight in the Copa America 2019 group games, and I'm joined by just one man today, as Mark O'Hare is at Royal Ascot with his top hat and tails. Adam Chernoff, it is exceptionally early in the morning in Vancouver, but you're wide awake to preview the final group games.
Wide awake and going solo. Happy to be here again. Hopefully Mark's having a lot of fun, but I think it's worth pointing out that he's wearing the tails and the top hat. We're going with the slick black polo and the same button to undone to done up ratio as well. So we've got it going on this morning too.
It's almost like we synchronized this in advance, which we very much did not, but it just shows the good taste that we have.
100%.
Absolutely. I find black is slimming as well, so it's kind of one of those ones. Let's talk about, I'm always kind of intrigued by the final group games of tournaments like this, because obviously when we're looking at the group tables, there are some teams through, there are other teams that are out of it, there are other teams that need a win, they need just a point. Give me just a general kind of advice. Obviously, we don't want to get too much involved here, but there's also the perils in backing a team who has to win, Adam, because the general narrative will go and the money will go with that team as opposed to a team that doesn't have to win.
Yeah, so in last week's video, we really talked about how one of the really common narratives in betting football is to bet on the team who's going to have most of the possession and push the other one back. And we sort of highlighted how you have to go a little bit deeper than that with Peru, which rewarded us and anyone who watched the video quite well. Very same, like you said, is true. A lot of people will look for the team that has to win. And the point on that is the motivator. Reality is when you're at an international tournament like this, you're past the opening two games. Everyone's pretty motivated. And Copa America takes a bit of slack for having this format where they only have 12 teams, but 2 of the third place teams go through out of 3 groups. It bites them early on because it gives the tournament sort of a less competitive stature than other international tournaments. But when you get to the round 3 like this, and every team is still alive with a chance to advance, that makes it really interesting too. The only team that's sitting on anything of value is Colombia with 2 wins, and then the Argentina draw against Paraguay. They're the only team that's advanced and secured that #1 spot. Otherwise, all 11 teams still alive to advance. So it makes for some really interesting football here over the weekend.
Yeah, and of course, you've got only 3 groups of 4 teams, 12, and there's obviously 8 teams have to qualify. There's only 4 teams that don't qualify. Adam, let's look at Saturday night's games first of all. So both these are kicking off at the same time. We'll start with Bolivia and Venezuela. Current betting, Bolivia, who've been pretty abysmal in this tournament, 7.4. Venezuela at 1.55. The draw there available at 4.3. Bolivia getting a 1-goal flat start on the Asian handicap. You get back that at evens at 2.0. 2.5 is the total. I mentioned there, Adam, that Bolivia have been pretty abysmal, and you're not going to convince me to back Bolivia here on Saturday night, surely.
No, certainly not. And we really were strong on them opposing against Peru. And what really shocked me in that match was just how poor they are on the ball, especially with their first touch. You look at how many times they were dispossessed, but just how much space there was between when they gathered the ball and that first touch. It just let Peruvian midfielders kind of take the ball back whenever they want and really control that match, especially in the latter 60 to 70 minutes. And Venezuela is a little bit more physical than Peru. They've got a little bit more size. So I certainly think that's concerning. Bolivia, they've stuck true to that 4-4-1-1. Really highlighted what the weaknesses are for those who are just catching up. It means that both strikers up front are going to have a really good match independently, but it leaves those central defenders vulnerable. And that was really where Peru could exploit them. That's where Brazil finally figured out how to exploit them. Venezuela really plays this long ball style. If you're looking under Dudamel, we really know what they're going to do. They've had more than 55 long balls in both matches this Copa America, which is a pretty enormous number for an international play like this. So this match, they're going to have to make a change of some sort to get those short passes and have success. Peru and Brazil were both very good with short passes going straight up the middle. Venezuela is going to have to find something. I don't think that their 4-1-4-1 is going to be the way to attack Bolivia. It's just going to set up for too much stale play in midfield. So Dudamel is going to have to make a change. Only once in his coaching tenure with Venezuela has he started both Martinez and Rondon in in forward for Venezuela. And I think there's value to doing that. But I also think that there's value to putting Soteldo on, who came on last match, really made an impact late. So it's going to be interesting. The best formation you want to go at something like a 4-4-1-1 is probably like a 3-5-2 or like a 4-1-2-1-2 type of diamond formation that's really narrow and attacks them right up the middle. If Dudamel can come across with a game plan like that, he certainly has the speed up front. Rondon can win those balls in the middle. He's so good at that and fits this system that Venezuela plays so well. And then, as I've talked about all tournament, they've got Fariñas in the back as the keeper, who he didn't really have to do too much in the last match against Brazil. He only had to make one save, but he did face 19 shots. I thought he managed the box very well. Sort of a break for him after he made a couple big saves against Peru. So you've got that as the last line of defense against two forwards from Bolivia who tend to get isolated up front. So I really think this sets up well for Venezuela. I had them priced to about 70% on the outright market and for the game. So that in itself presents some value on the handicap as well, either the 3/4 goal or the -1. Both of those still presenting a little bit of value based on the price too. So it's really a preference of price, but I would be leaning to the 3/4 goals and pay a little bit more in that one, just because Bolivia can be a little bit difficult to break down, especially at the back. We saw that against Peru, but once Venezuela breaks through, if they're able to get one early, then I think this is a 2 to 3 goal victory for Venezuela.
Yeah, you should be able to get about 1.7 on Venezuela minus 3/4 goal. Talk to me though about the general. Would you be small but worried here in the sense that, you know, Venezuela, they've played 2 games, they haven't scored a goal. That being said, they haven't conceded one either, even though Brazil had a few ruled out the last night, rightly ruled out. But, you know, a point probably looking at the tables here could and should be enough for Venezuela to go through. Would there be a kind of, you know, a worry that if it's 0-0 with 70 minutes gone, that they may just go, yeah, whatever?
Well, right now they're the top 3rd place seed in the tournament at the moment. I think that the 2 matches prior to this really forced their hand a certain way. I was a little bit worried about how they played against Peru. They got a little bit out of sorts, especially later in the second half, and started making some bad rush decisions. But against Brazil, they were dedicated to playing that tight, compact style at the back and didn't really push forward much for long balls over the top to Rondon. But they made very smart defensive decisions for 90 minutes, and it kept them in that match. VAR assisted a little bit as well in that against Brazil. But, I mean, if the goal's overturned, rightfully so. We'll have some disagreements over that. But they made some really good decisions defensively, and there just wasn't that offensive game plan. And I think we see that switch. So really the value I see in them pushing forward is if they make that switch, they're going to be committed to that, because it's going to require a personnel change up front. And with those guys on the pitch, it's just going to create a more open style of play. And I think that lends itself well to the win. If they've got the guys on, it's going to be difficult to sort of revert against a team like Bolivia, who's not going to press you back. So I really think that they go for the victory here, secure the win, and get through to the next round.
All right, we talked about Brazil, and obviously we were on Venezuela the last night, 2.25 with an Asian handicap start, so we're not worried about those goals being ruled out. They play Peru at the same time on Saturday night, and current betting they're 1.37 Brazil. It's a lot to give up for a team who hasn't been firing. 11.0 Peru, the draw 5.3. Brazil are 1.25 favorite on the Asian handicap, and the total is 2.75. This Brazilian team left the field last night, Adam, with cacophony of boos from the home fans. Pressure seems to be on, but I mean, look at this one. It's a hard one because essentially both teams, from what I can see, are through here.
Yeah, it's a weird situation for Brazil because they've got all this talent, but Chiche just can't figure out a way in this tournament to put it all together. He started Arthur last match with I thought was a huge upgrade to what he put forth on the pitch against Bolivia, even though they got that win 3-0. He looked fantastic in midfield, and there was sort of this link. They just couldn't get any shots on target. They only got one all match, despite having the bulk of possession and the bulk of their passes being completed in the attacking third of the pitch. So they were great moving the ball out of the back, but they just couldn't make anything happen from it against Venezuela, who was making these really good decisions. But I have some questions. Like, he took off Casemiro and put in Firmino. they needed another winger, another attacker in there to break down this compact Venezuelan side, and he elected to put in a defensive midfielder as the first sub to bring him on. So I'm not sure what he was thinking there. I think the fans in the stadium, who, like you said, were getting behind, booing and starting to put the pressure on, I think they were in disagreement as well. But Brazil's just been playing so narrow in both of these matches. They had some success against Bolivia, took them a half to get going, but like they couldn't make the change to attack Venezuela wide and lengthen out their play, and they just stayed so narrow, and Venezuela was really able to just contain them inside. And for the most part, I thought they did extremely well at doing that. And so it was weird to see Brazil, despite having the personnel, not being able to command that and have success against Venezuela. I thought it's a match that they could have won, but Venezuela was able to hold through, and Brazil was unable to make the changes. So I'm not too sure what to think of that. Really a big result for Peru in the last match. And we talked about the market support for Peru. It was there all World Cup. It was there in both matches. And already in this match, they started right around 12.5 and they're down to 10. And I know that's an enormous price, but we see that trickle through in all the handicaps as well, where there's been money supporting them, dropping that price down. I think Edison Flores definitely needs to start. He came on in the second half. He got the goal late in the match against Bolivia. He's a big difference maker in the midfield, but you're getting production out of Farfan, you're getting production out of Guerrero. Everything in that team looks great. They're finally really showed what they could play through against Bolivia. Yes, they gave up the early penalty, but we can debate if that was actually a penalty as well. It seems like every goal this tournament or every decision is being questioned by VAR, and it's getting a little bit frustrating, but I mean, the video shows what it is, and it becomes subject to what the referee interprets. But, I mean, other than that, they played a fantastic match. So certainly the support is with Peru again in this one. On the handicap, I'm a little concerned about what they have on the back line against Brazil, but I'm also concerned about how they're going to attack this very strong Brazilian back four right up the middle. This is not a team that really is strong playing from the wings. They like to go right up the middle. It's a bit of a shock to deal with for teams when they see this speed and talent right up the middle to start. But I think that Brazil has the experience that this isn't going to be as surprising as, say, Bolivia found it, or even Venezuela in that first match. So not really a strong side for me on this one. But I think if I had to lean anywhere, I'd be leaning Peru on the handicap.
Yeah, and obviously you and Mark flagged that in our tournament special at the start. Peru are most definitely a team that are trending upwards, and they should be able to provide Brazil with some problems. It's just, to me, Adam, it just looks like kind of a game to maybe just watch and enjoy and kind of stay away and maybe get stuck into Venezuela. Let's move on to Sunday night, and Colombia and Paraguay is our first one up in Group B. Current betting 2.75 Colombia, 2.57 Paraguay, the draw 3.4. The Asian handicap is a flat draw and all bet, slightly favouring Paraguay at 1.89, and the total is 2.25. Now, clearly, Adam, we're looking at this betting. This indicates that Colombia, having won the group, are potentially going to rest a few players here. But, I mean, would you be really getting that much involved in Paraguay at 2.57 here?
Yeah, it's like you said, Colombia's the only team that's secured their way and knows where they're going to be in the second round. They don't have to face Brazil. They're locked in the bottom of the bracket. So unless something crazy happens in Group A, they're not going to end up facing Brazil, who would have to drop down to third place. I believe the bracket makes them drop into the bottom. So Colombia's really sort of carved their path into the final, where they're probably going to just have to get by Uruguay. Paraguay, on the other hand, it's just such a weird situation because they have all of the ability. Berizzo loves to play the high press. That's what he was when he was a player. Why that hasn't translated onto the field, I don't know. And I harped on it a bit when they choked away that lead against Qatar. But again, against Argentina, who I'm going to beat up a little bit in a few minutes, Paraguay could have pressed him. Argentina was playing with such a ridiculously high back line, and they chose to sit back again. So I'm not sure what the team has in their style here and what they want to do, but they seem to be sticking to their traditional ways, which is not beneficial to the players they have on the pitch. Almiron had to play with his speed by himself. He had that one set up for the goal. He ran 55 yards by himself because nobody wanted to go up the pitch with him. And so until they get that high press working, this team is going to fall well short of their expectations. And going up against Colombia, probably going to see some personnel changes, but they've got a ton of depth, especially in midfield. And I think Quiroz is going to stay to his style and force this high press that we've seen. I've been really impressed with Colombia. I've been calling for Duvan Zapata both games in the preview podcast, breaking it down. He comes on, goal in the first match, goal in the second match. Such a difference maker up front. It's hard to see him not being in the starting 11 going forward. I think he's earned that with these two. James is playing out of his mind. He set up 7 chances, which was a record for Colombian international play last match. And so he's been fantastic. He got the assist. The way he's commanding the midfield is just fantastic. We're seeing him play like he was in 2014 when he earned the Golden Boot, but he's taking like the secondary setup role, which is really, really interesting. It creates a brilliant dynamic for Colombia, and it really makes them dangerous going forward. Wilmar Barrios, arguably the best player in the tournament of any team so far, and the way that he's been able to work in defensive midfield and just shut down any attack. Paraguay, they're really dedicated to these long balls. They're not getting that short passing game going. They're really holding on to possession for a long time in attack. If Colombia starts their usual back four, they're not going to be able to beat Mina Long because they don't have the size up front. And then they're just going to get contained by the other 4 Colombian defenders. So it really depends on what lineup comes out, and we'll know a little bit more about that Saturday. This price is drifting a little bit for Colombia. I believe they're down about as low as 2.7. So now you said 2.75. So just a little bit. But to see them not take on money after the results in the first 2 matches, I think that's the market playing into, while they've qualified, they don't have much to play for, which is a little bit of the opposite narrative of what we said to avoid, where the team has to win. This is probably a situation where there's a bit of overreaction the other way. I think the price here is a little bit long on them. So it may come in, but even with some of the depth they have, I think they match up against Paraguay pretty well.
Exactly, and do not underestimate the fact that a team, when they do have the shackles off a bit, and like you said, Carlos Queiroz, he's no idiot. He wants to keep the momentum going, and losing a game here still could potentially just affect the team going forward. Let's look at the other game then. I know you're very keen to knock on Argentina, and why wouldn't you be? They've scored 1 goal in 2 games, that from the penalty spot through Lionel Messi. And they're at 1.28 here against Qatar. Now, anybody who wants to back Argentina at 1.28 in the current state, they're in the best of luck here. Qatar, the draw 5.5. Argentina 1.5 goal favourite on the Asian handicap. You can back that at 1.9 currently matchbook, and 2.75 is the total even. Adam, look, I suppose we'll talk about this in 2 ways here, because Qatar, to be fair, they're probably been better than, even you and I thought coming into this. But I think we flagged it at the start, especially Mark, that Argentina have been abysmal.
I don't know how to describe it. Like, I thought it was a joke. I was on the plane and I went back and I saw some of the Twitter reaction. And then I went back and rewatched the match. Here in Canada, we've got this app. It's all being streamed because the Women's World Cup is taking center stage. So we're able to rewatch the matches. So I went and rewatched the Argentina match. And I kid you not, for the majority of the match, they were playing a 2-2-6. And that's not a joke. I've never seen anything like it. They were playing with the most outrageously high back line, where their fullbacks were joining the attack for the majority of it. Like, I've never seen a team with that much talent suffer from such a lack of leadership and tactical positioning in my entire life. Like, I don't even know how to describe it. Was honestly a 2-2-6. And I don't know how to describe it. It took them 33 minutes with that high of a back line and with that much effort in attack. It took them 33 minutes and with Messi on the pitch to get 1 shot attempt. So, I mean, I don't know what to make of it. Marco here was certainly all over fading Argentina. It's a complete mess. And then to back it up, Scaloni comes in after the press conference and he says the best half that we played was the second half against Colombia, where they were outscored 2-0. So it was the worst half they've played on the scoreboard. And if you look to some extent statistically, and he thinks it's the best half, like the coaching incompetence right now and he's not, I mean, he's listed as a caretaker coach, but certainly his job has to be on the line. But within this federation, I don't even know if they're even concerned about it. I hope they are, but it's such a disorganized federation that I don't even know what to think of that as well. But the spacing is embarrassing. There's zero tactical input. and everyone's just kind of standing around waiting for something to happen. So it's super concerning for Argentina, and to see them at this price, I get why, because I mean, people are going to respect the namesake value, and to see Argentina in anything shorter than Qatar is just going to result in enormous one-way action. But it's very ugly and concerning for Argentina at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, look, you look at this betting market right now. I mean, the great thing about an exchange is that you can lay Argentina. So you obviously have the Qatar and you've got the draw on site. But if you're to attack this now, could I tempt you even on, you're getting odds against them, Qatar plus a goal and a half. And, to their credit, Adam, they haven't been, that bad in this tournament. They seem to, the travel factor hasn't seemed to be a factor so far. But could they stay within 2 goals here against Argentina?
It's scary. I mean, I've been against Qatar. I'll give them a little bit of support after last match. The one thing I'll say about them is in both of these matches, and I think it's credit to Felix Sanchez, we're really looking at the opposite situation here. They've been extremely organized. They've held to their positioning very well. They've had very good spacing, arguably probably 2 or 3 best teams in this tournament so far. So where I see value, I guess, with Qatar is if they can stay organized and Argentina is this swirling mess, that certainly plays into Qatar. But I personally can't get behind them myself. I think that eventually this backline is going to get exposed for the lack of size. Potentially they get burned for their speed at the back, but in the contrary, they also have a lot of speed up front. So they just have to figure out a way to exploit that without being exposed at the back. Argentina is playing so high with their fullbacks. If they can ever get some of their speed behind that, it's a huge advantage for Qatar. But I don't know at this number, which I think is priced on the handicaps quite fair. There's maybe a bit of value in it, but it's not something for me to get involved with at the moment.
Oh, okay. The other side of that, you could maybe back in under here at 2.75, so if it does land in 2, you get well paid there as well. And even if it lands in 3, you get half your stake. Adam, we can't really look at Group C's games because we're recording this on a Friday afternoon, UK and Ireland time, Friday morning, very early.
We can speculate.
We can speculate, yes. I mean, let's speculate. I think that's probably the best thing we can do. What are your thoughts, sir? Because obviously we've got Ecuador and Japan, Chile and Uruguay. Chile and Uruguay looking at to be home and home, Uruguay especially. Props to Japan, Adam. They've been quite good this tournament.
Yeah, it was. I want to, much like Qatar, like I want to believe in Japan, but again, they've sent their youth side, and it's just this narrative of, oh, great, they're coming around. We're looking forward to the Olympics. They're so vulnerable to counterattacks, and even when they get this goal, they just retreat so much after they score, and then they just become vulnerable again. And we saw that against Uruguay. They got the first goal, and the markets reacted. Everyone jumped on them, and they were so excited, and then instantly they retreated back, and their lack of size came through. And Uruguay, again, 29 total shots in that match, 18 inside the box. They put 2 off the post. And I mean, they missed every possible chance that they had. So even though the scoreboard says 2-2, certainly concerning that they were able to give up that much and Uruguay was not able to finish. Anytime you give up 18 shots inside the box, you probably don't deserve to come out with a result. That was certainly the case. Again, the team has spots of brilliance, but they're just so vulnerable after. And going up against Ecuador in their final match, this is where we're finally going to see the size of Ecuador really come through. Ecuador is extremely big and physical. If that's the matchup that takes out, it's going to be very concerning. But this is the biggest market move we've seen of the tournament so far. So that reaction is enormous to Japan and what they did against Uruguay. Their starting price was enormous. I believe it was above 5, and it's all the way down to 3.6, you said. So, I mean, this thing is moving. We're looking at 8-9% moves. Handicaps have been pummeled as well. So certainly the market really bullish on what Japan did against Uruguay. Certainly they did not look nearly as bad as their initial loss in the opening match. They actually won the expected goals battle in that one despite losing 4-0. So we probably saw a bit of an adjustment in the last match, but against Ecuador, who I have my concerns with, certainly the market is really liking the look of Japan.
Give me your best bet of the weekend, Adam.
Best bet of the weekend for me will be Venezuela going up against Peru. I think there's also potentially value in under goals in the Brazil match. We see probably that one play a little bit tighter against Peru. You can maybe sneak a 2 3/4 goals under, have some protection on the 3. Day 2 is pretty tricky. We're going to have to see what Colombia comes out with their lineups, matching up against Paraguay. So that one's going to be a little bit close. I'll stay very far away from Argentina and Qatar. Day 3, Uruguay against Chile. That's going to be interesting to see what happens with Chile tonight. So we're going to have to keep an eye on that. But there's certainly questions on their backline going up against Uruguay. So if they're able to get the win, and then these two teams are playing for top spot in the group. Remember, the top spot in Group C avoids Brazil in the top of the bracket. So that's going to be a very big match for Uruguay and Chile. I would definitely lean Uruguay there against Chile. Should Chile get the win tonight against Ecuador, setting up that match, that'll probably be the one spot where I end up fading Chile. I've talked about really opposing them in one big spot. That would probably be the one if Chile gets the win tonight against Ecuador. So keep an eye on the markets if you're lingering around.
A whole lot of monitor the situation, adapt accordingly would be the order of the day. The shadow boxing will be over next week, Adam. We will have our 4 quarterfinals, and we hopefully should be recording maybe Tuesday or Wednesday. Adam Chernoff, enjoy the weekend.
You as well. Enjoy the matches.
Thank you. And thank you for watching or listening to us on the podcast today. Best of luck with your Copa America bets for the weekend. And we'll talk to you next week for the quarterfinals.